Content warning. This episode includes conversation where we talk about topics like consent and briefly mention the topic of sexual assault. If this material is sensitive to you at this time, feel free to step away from the episode. If you are looking to educate yourself or find further resources for support, I have included some in the description of this episode so you do not have to watch or listen further. Otherwise, enjoy the episode.
Hello, Tru Loves, and welcome to the podcast.
We are your hosts, your neighborhood-friendly, nature-loving,
Health-eating, free-spirited, environmentally and socially conscious,
art-loving, big auntie energy, gifted and always somewhere dancing and singing sisters.
I am Tyra.
And I'm Sharon, and this is the Awakened Podcast. Now let's jump right into it with a sort of two-part question. Feel free to join in with the conversation as usual. Comment below if you have thoughts to share. So we'll start with one. What's a lesson you've learned on your own journey of exploring your sexuality?
Just one lesson.
Something that stands out amongst the others.
I want to say it's okay if you are picky. I feel like, especially when I was younger, I was very picky. And then as I got older, I wanted to be less picky because I felt as though the cool kids are having more fun. So I wanted to join in on that and really mingle and meet people. But I think as I get older, I'm feeling that my first thought of being picky was actually, valuable.
The right one.
So
that's
I'd
tea.
say be choosy. I like the word choosy.
Yeah,
be choosy.
I like choosy. I like that. I think I'll take the second part to that question. If you have some, what word of advice can you give young women like yourself and women in general that are exploring their own sacred sexuality? So the word of advice that I would give is empower yourself. Own your voice, own your sexuality, and take up space. Do so shamelessly, and don't feel bad for being picky or choosy as well. It's your sacred space, it's your sexuality, and it's up to you what you want to do with that. Whether you're choosy or not, actually. Be confident and work on your self-empowerment as much as you can when it comes to your sexuality. Question number 2. What has helped you on your journey of learning to love and accept your own body?
I started to separate sensuality and sexuality. And learning the difference between sensuality and sexuality actually made life more pleasurable, like more tantric, I would say. When I started to separate those two, I actually empowered my sexuality.
I love that.
Sorry, what was the question?
What has helped you on your journey of learning to love and accept your body?
Oh, okay. So once I dived into what sensuality was to me specifically, it then empowered me to also study more about Tantra and energy work. So the more that I understand like my sensibilities and that I am a sensual woman, I can accept my sensual and sexual side. And then that also empowers my body love as well, my curves. So that has made me accept my body and the attention that I may attract or the attraction that I have. And then obviously like mirror work, any self-exploration, and affirmation is always helpful. So
I love that. I feel like if you have anything, I would love to hear more about that because I think that's very useful to listeners. What exact practices help you to explore your body but really love your body for its uniqueness and not feel pressures to compare yourself or conform in this world?
So when I started going deeper into sensuality, it reminded me that being sensual is also playfulness. And I always talk about innocence. I'm big preserving your innocence kind of gal. And why that is important to me is because I do believe that if you cannot have laughter and lightheartedness in life and in love and in sensuality, sexuality, you're not really enjoying yourself. So if you can't laugh at yourself, if you can't be lighthearted, especially when looking at yourself, if you can't remove the criticism, then are you really enjoying the pleasure of your own body? And then again with sensibility, touch. I really like to do like physical massages on my own body, obviously self-pleasuring, and affirmations, mirror work, like I've already said. I definitely think reminding yourself that you are a temple, and so if you are jumping off on that foot, any external like validation or pleasure or stimulation that you're getting should be tied to something that is empowering you and not something that might quickly feel good but isn't feeling good in the long run. Or it's tied to something that doesn't make you feel good outside of the sex or sexuality. Yes, I think that sensuality is such a good phrase
we
for
can
that
pause
reason.
because that's gonna be so loud, bro. We're keeping that in because it's actually kind of funny.
I recently set some intentions around pleasureful things that I like, things that I would like to explore with a partner, things that I like exploring by myself, and then also setting intentions around how I want to be viewed and how I want to be experienced even energetically. So that is very important to me.
I feel like I'm going to break it down just so our viewers, listeners can have a sort of bullet point. You said playfulness, sacredness, and intention is how we learn to accept and love our bodies.
And
I love that.
I would say touch.
I love that.
Like getting in touch with what's physically, because some things we deem as pleasureful, but it's only because we're told that it is versus what we experience. And okay, I like this, I don't like this.
Yeah. I do want to answer this question, and my answer of what's helped me on learning to love and accept my own body has definitely been, especially as of late, but I think ever since I've been in my 20s, really tapping in with my ancestral lineage. We talk about this a lot between us as sisters. Obviously, we have the same ancestral lineage. Just diving into what difficulties would my grandmother or my mother have worked through around loving and accepting their body when it comes to body image, learning not to body shame yourself or judge yourself for your eating habits and things like this, which I know we all in these type of environments to some degree deal with. Really tapping into how would my grandmother like to be celebrated today, and really honoring the fact that I am able to be a vessel that love and that, I wanted to say poetry, that healing can come through in the present day. Obviously mirror work is huge for me too. Before I shower, take a bath, dancing in the mirror and like just accepting all of the curves and all the flaws and all the things that I see as holy and like sacred and beautiful. Also, as a curvaceous woman and someone that comes from kind of curvaceous women, I feel like when I look in the mirror, really learning to identify with that as a beautiful thing and learning that it's okay for me to take up space and honor all these curves and parts of me. So
I think you've made such a valid point, so I just want to build on that.
So go ahead.
Because I think it's something no one thinks about when they think about sexuality. Your ancestors.
Yeah. Especially body acceptance. Like if we were picking up how our mother was criticizing herself, how our grandmother didn't maybe feel her best when she was looked a certain way. Like we pick up all of that.
I think about my ancestors, and I think also about privacy. Privacy. And also I would say agency, because everybody has a different experience. So not to say that you need to have all the options in the world or all the space in the world or all the things and the money, but I think everyone's experience and walk of life is different, which can, limit your perception, self-perception, your agency. So I think when I'm thinking about my ancestors, I really think about I have the ability to have my own room through my 20s, and I'm not taking care of children or a husband, and I can do so much exploration that is necessary that maybe my ancestors did not.
Even mirror work requires privacy.
Yes.
One of my main points mentioning my ancestors was when I look in the mirror and I come to that deep kind of self-acceptance, it almost brings me to tears. This is so beautiful when I think about the women before me and what they've now created with me. I think about how now the women after me will feel about their bodies and their self-validation and being able to really see their beauty from like deep within and being like, this is gorgeous, this is powerful, this body walks me through life and has so much strength and gets me through every day. It's so healthy, and there's power in that.
It sets the tone. It does. And like there's so many subconscious things that children can pick up at an early age. They truly are sponges. Yeah. So your relationship to your body, your relationship to sensuality, touch, pleasure is just constantly being picked up by, especially if you have younger, family members that look up to you and you carry that around in your aura. It's very obvious when you're around, especially youth, what they're picking up. Yeah. And it's important that we know that just because someone is younger than us doesn't mean we limit their body love or their expression or their pleasure. Obviously, we want everyone to own it in a way that is safe and practical and meaningful, hopefully, and intentional, smart.
Yes. So, if you're seriously listening and you're really wanting to know.
There is a mole or
I know,
a
it's over
gopher.
here. It was so distracting.
He's
It's
right
cute.
behind us.
He's cute,
He's
though.
adorable.
He's picking at the leaves.
Oh, I thought it was like a paper plate. Thank goodness. It's leaves.
But the last thing I wanted to say, if you're really listening to like kind of take notes of, I maybe struggle with loving my body and accepting myself. Seriously, what are some things that have helped other people? Another thing I love to do, when I take baths, I sit there and like rub my feet and I will thank each body part. And when I think about what each body part does for me in a day, these legs run, they walk, they do so much. They get tired and then they keep going too. So I think when you give gratitude for your body, for its functioning even beyond beauty standards and those type of limitations, you can really have gratitude for yourself on a deeper level than just giving into the shame of what you think you're supposed to look like. I think when you have that deep connection with your body, it's easy to find gratitude and love for yourself. Alrighty, so next question. This one's a big one, just to forewarn you. How do you combat patriarchal, religious, and overall oppressive ideals that harm how we view women's bodies and sexuality in your day-to-day life? That is a loaded question. So
a lot of, especially like spiritual women, will bring up Lilith or a lot of the dark feminine, dark goddess archetypes, which I do openly talk about, connecting with different energies, sources of energy or inspiration.
I love that.
And I have definitely connected with a lot of different dark goddesses. And they have helped me remove a lot of shame, guilt, and like revolutionize my sexuality.
Yes.
So I think connecting with any of the dark goddesses, even considering yourself a priestess if that resonates, and connecting with different labels is important. Not to like limit yourself to one thing, but to integrate, to add to, and to move beyond any limitation. A lot of connecting and learning about different archetypes was really important. Obviously, Lilith has such a bad reputation in
my thought
astrology.
Is Medusa. She has
Medusa.
A bad reputation, and her story is actually very transformative and transmuting of some dark, heavy energy.
And Lilith, even within astrology, is an important part of yourself to understand if you are into astrology. Specifically, my Lilith energy as my shadow side. If I can honor my shadow, then I can utilize the deeper feelings of guilt, shame, regret, whatever, to be transformative and to alchemize. So
wow. That's such a out-of-the-box way to go combating those oppressive systems. Almost instead of remaining in those systems to combat them, you use a whole different language, which is archetypes and things, which those systems don't always honor things like that. So I think that's beautiful.
But I think that is what religion does. It is metaphorical and allegorical. So it's true. There to inspire, hopefully, your psyche to see yourself and to learn and to set parameters for yourself or have discipline for yourself. So I think you can use any story that way.
Those stories don't always include women. Include women in like a inclusive and empowering light, I want to say.
I'm not like someone who's overtly like conservative, and I'm also not very competitive or masculine to the point where it's like if I'm not showing skin, I don't feel as confident or beautiful or sexy. I think my, limited perspective of what sexy is has really left me at this point because I do find myself very cute, very alluring, very sensual, very sexy.
Yeah.
But it's in my own tone, and it is deeply rooted in my confidence and my healing work. So
I love that.
I think that I'm not someone who thinks like you have to overly cover up, but I'm also not someone who thinks that you have to like, do too much or show too much skin or just to earn that validation or whatever. I think energy kind of trumps all of that.
Yeah.
And then I'm also not someone who thinks that if you don't cover up, it's your fault and it's not a man's fault and we don't hold them accountable.
Yeah.
But then I can even go further than that and be like, well, we're raising these men. So
yeah. And that's why I asked, how do you combat patriarchal is a part of it too. And how that affects women's bodies. And like you said, it's not just up to women to combat these things. We do have to hold men accountable to how I think creates their image of
there's nothing we can
women.
do about our ancestors and the ways that they raised these men anymore. But what we can do is like take note, especially with our sons, and making sure that we don't have, again, carrying certain things within our aura.
Yeah.
Or subconsciously picking up so much.
Yeah.
Using religion to override untapped or you know, because some people use religion to avoid shadow work. So, you know, we'll have mothers who will say, don't wear that around your father, instead of saying, I should have chosen a better father.
Right.
Things like this.
I should have deconstructed my mindset and
instead of tolerating certain things.
Patriarchy, which allows me to enable men that are harmful.
Yes.
And gained, like, worked on my self-worth, whatever the case may be. Everyone's different before I chose
so
this.
I've definitely seen all sides of the spectrum when it comes to religion and patriarchy, and how those sometimes can go hand in hand. And I know that it's not the end all be all, and I know that that's not everyone's experience, but sadly sometimes religion is used to promote certain things and avoid consciousness and avoid autonomy and accountability. So for me, I won't be one of those people. I will be open to all ideals, and I won't use, you know, religious programming or spiritual programming to be aloof or just accepting of whatever, especially predatory behavior.
It can promote harm and dark things behind the scenes because of those beliefs. People, you're right, don't want to do that shadow work. I feel like you just I saw it clear in my brain. So back to the question, how do you combat patriarchal, religious, and overall oppressive ideals that harm how we view women's bodies and sensuality in your day-to-day life? So for me, even as a woman, holding myself accountable, listening to women in their stories and experiences, practicing non-judgment and being a safe space, as well as validating my own journey with exploring my sexuality, the good and the bad. Overall, deconstructing harmful views of women that are rooted in misogyny due to religious, systemic, or societal programs. Like you said, taking the shame out of these conversations and putting the power back into women's hands. And I know it sounds so cliche, people say it so often, but it's true. Bringing these conversations to the forefront, like, yes, we are women, we have sexuality, and there's nothing to be ashamed of about that, and we do self-explore, and we explore with others, and we deserve respect, and we deserve to have healthy boundaries. Providing that conversation makes so much room for the information to be shared, instead of, you know, being comfortable in our ignorance, which I think historically has been a thing, especially when it comes to women's health, period, but especially women's bodily autonomy and sexuality too.
And sometimes we're not made to feel as though we do have that. So it's not always just ignorance. It can be a lot of, you know, programming making us feel like we have to keep our voices quiet and tolerate any type of mentality or belief system.
So with this next question, I want to dive into talking about a topic that is very important to me. What have you learned about expressing and owning your bodily agency, autonomy, and being outspoken about your boundaries and consent? Kind of going back to how have you empowered yourself about your body, but it's more so about like your autonomy, agency, and consent.
The more because there's no really way to understand anyone, you know?
I'm learning this.
You can be understanding, but there's no way to like know someone like the back of your hand. You can know them a lot. You can know them well.
You can try.
So for me, especially with men, like I do the best that I can to learn as much as I can, and I do the best that I can to study my preference, which is male. Try to lend that compassion and understanding while also knowing that there is a different lens they are seeing through, and trying to be also conscious of that
balance of having compassion and then also having discernment and like holding those people accountable.
I'm ready to tell you what I like and what I don't like.
I love that.
I'm actually very excited. So I guess what I've learned is to be audacious, like be out there. I think actually some people find it very hot. I think, you know, the men that I like like it, and they like to not necessarily be told what to do, but at least that they know, you know, what I'm looking for. Communication is sexy to me. Making it spicy with words beforehand, because I think that would make things so much more effortless when you finally get to that point. And honestly, if there's anyone that makes you feel like giving your body over is not, like, it's not up to you and it's owed to them, that is a predator. That's not like a gray area. That's a black and white situation, and you need to get out of there. So I do want to express, especially to young people,
I like that although you feel like you had a lot of moments where your boundaries were expressed and like respected and you had people looking out for you, I think it's really important still to share that's what you've learned, is being outspoken is very beneficial as a woman, because I think a lot of women need to hear that a lot of the time. So I think that's great. It's beautiful. I think the impacts of systemic oppression on multiple avenues, racism, sexism, colorism, and homophobia reflects the levels in which we see a lack of bodily autonomy for women of all kinds on different levels. I really appreciate how Erica Hart explains it on the first episode of the Netflix limited series, The Principles of Pleasure. How Black people have been impacted due to colonization and systemic racism, and how that has taken agency away from our bodies. If colonization happened to Black people, it is also happening to everyone else. The impacts are still very much there. They're just more for Black and Indigenous communities. This speaks volumes to the importance of gearing young women and all women up with awareness of their bodies, the importance of their bodily autonomy, and how to protect themselves, freely express themselves, and use their voices. We also highly recommend checking out this Netflix series if you are looking to learn more about women's sexuality, or if you just want to normalize having and hearing these type of conversations. Something I also want to include in this conversation is the topic of consent. So first, let's define it. Without looking anything up or hearing the textbook definition, how would you define consent for yourself?
For me, what consent looks like is, like I've already said, I'm going to actually play out a scenario because this is important to me. I've literally thought about this a few times. In my head, the perfect scenario is like me and you have spent already a lot of quality time together. So I'm getting to know you in a way that it would make sense that we would even have that conversation to begin with. Then we talk through a lot of scenarios together. For me, that is building up to consent. And then once it's time to participate,
I love that. I
think,
really love that.
Like, once you have your hands on me, or I have my hands on you, and we're taking it that next step further, hopefully we've had so much conversation that both of us know what to expect. And until I'm telling you with my body or my actions or my energy even, I want to be with someone who's intuitive. So at least if you've spent enough quality time with me, you know if something's off, and you wouldn't ignore that.
Yes.
So for me, consent can be completely non-verbal. But obviously, let's say I'm in a scenario which has happened. I'm on a date, and this is only like the few times that I've ever met this person, and they did ask, can I kiss you? And I said yes. Yeah. So sometimes it can be a simple verbal yes or no question. Yes. But for me, it's green lights. So whether that's verbal or non-verbal, it's someone giving you the permission to take further actions.
I love that definition. I feel so proud. That's really good. I like that scenario too, and I think that's something that I, as a young woman, want to keep in mind moving forward, is like building up that trust, really getting to know that person beforehand. That's very valuable, I feel like.
I'll also say too, I know that sometimes we say we like certain things, and when you're exploring with a new partner or a new person, you might discover that you like different things. It's like we're all puzzle pieces and we fit each other in different ways. So you might have experienced something that you liked with someone else, and you might not like it as much with your next partner. So I think not to be rigid in that way either, or stubborn in that way, because that is something I enjoy, is like learning my new person or learning my new partner, getting to know what quirks and what works for us. I didn't mean to rhyme there, but figuring out what is going to work for the two of us, and kind of embracing that, because I think, like I said, it can be unique.
Yes, I love it. So for me, what is consent? I really like the definition of consent given by the UNC Pembroke, which shares, consent is the explicit approval and permission to engage in sexual activity demonstrated by clear actions, words, or writings. Informed consent is freely and voluntarily given. It is mutually understood by all parties involved. If coercion, intimidation, threats, and or physical force is used, there is no consent. Defining consent in this particular definition of it is so important to me, especially for our women listening and young women watching and listening too, and even men and young men as well. Past consent to sexual activities does not imply ongoing future consent. Consent can be withdrawn at any time and requires an outward demonstration through understandable words or actions. Consent is active and not passive. Silence, moving away, being asleep, or being passed out, confined, emotionally manipulated, coerced, or intimidated is by this definition not consent. When we are talking about consent, we must also acknowledge the violence that happens towards both women and men with sexual assault when consent is not properly given. I have included below in the description some further resources concerning this topic. With this aspect of consent and overall the agency of women's bodies in a society where women have historically been oppressed, it's easy to dismiss certain things as part of a culture that often wants to protect the harmful systems or views and the ways in which they operate. We must call it out for what it is and not ignore the harm that it has done to women and young girls. When we act as if their sexuality and natural way of being is dirty, shameful, or someone else's to be controlled or taken. This leads us to our next question, which there's kind of two questions here. Do you believe that intimate or sexual interaction with another person has significant spiritual impact? In other words, do you believe in soulmates or soul ties?
You want me to answer?
Yes.
I don't think that my answer is applicable for everyone, but
That's all right.
I do to some degree believe that interacting with someone else's sexual energy, even if you're not physically having sex with them, sharing any type of intimate sexual energy with someone, even creative energy, can definitely be karmic and can influence different aspects and areas of your life. I do believe in that. I do believe in soulmates. I don't believe that we have only one soulmate. I think that there are souls that are meant to challenge each other to be our best versions, to do any karmic healing work or generational healing work. So if that's what you think a soulmate is, I think then yes. And I definitely think that sexual energy is a part of that push or that initiation, if you will. So yes, I do. But I know that there are some people who might not feel that way. So yeah, at this moment, yes, that's how I feel.
I definitely agree. I feel like it has a big spiritual impact, at least for me. And I think that's the thing too. It is based on you as an individual, how you feel. For me, I feel like I'm very sensitive, so it definitely does impact me. I really try to be like discernful, obviously, of how I share that energy. And I definitely do believe in soulmates as well. There are positive and negative effects, as with anything. The heavier side might be soul ties, energy attachments, and dealing with energy vampires, people that are kind of feeding off your sexual energy a little bit, and you might not be as privy to it right away. And then the lighter side, obviously, which can be healing in sexual interactions, tantric sex, and using sexual energy to create life.
Not everybody has to, want to procreate. Actually, very few people are called to be parents, but many are.
Yeah, that's real.
It really supports that, narcissist empathic paradigm. So I just feel like it's not about judging people and it's not about being super critical. You want to have healthy compromise, healthy interdependence, and
respect, man.
Supportive to the psyche, collective psyche.
And sexual energy is just what?
Creative energy.
Creative energy.
Yeah.
And that's the real tea.
No one wants to talk about kids and sex, but they're literally created out of sex. And if we taught more children to have autonomy and to be shameless, guiltless,
protect themselves properly,
yes,
too.
To use the word no more often, even towards their parents, compromising with your children, gaining respect. I think if a lot of people understood that more, we'd have less ridiculousness,
less adults that feel like they have to go to extremes. There's no type of healing that's gained, especially sexually, from harming other people through sexual acts. It just shows that those people are primarily living out of your trauma. Sex and all these things can be healing, and I feel like it's because at the core of them is both parties are consenting and communicating and abiding by these boundaries.
If you have a good example of what love is, it's very easy to tell the difference. Even if you're partaking in something that is adult rated or kinky, you can see the difference if it's rooted in a real love, or if it's rooted in something that poses itself as love but is very harmful.
Last question, which is kind of just like an overview, really simple. It's a long question, but we're gonna get through it. What is your current goal or intention, if you have any, with these next steps on your journey of body love, self-acceptance, and expressing your sexuality freely, consensually, shamelessly, unapologetically, and in a way that you feel honored and empowered by? So basically, what are your goals or intentions on these next steps of your journey with where you're at right now?
I think like all I have left after making it through my 20s, all I have left, maybe it's not all I have left, I don't know. I think that
This is
only
all I have
obvious
left in me.
I think the only obvious step is to like literally give birth. Like I think my
Okay.
next, yes,
She ready.
like,
She ready.
You know how they talk about a body clock? Like I'm telling you, my female clock is on. She's ready. She wants to go.
Yeah.
So I guess
respect
my thing is, healthy boundaries, which I think I'm pretty good. I'm pretty discerning. And planting my seed in soil ground. I want it to flourish. I want it to grow. So even if that means I have to be patient. So putting my desire in the right places and having mastery over my desire. But I think that that's something I'm already doing. So that's why I would say the next step would be birth. Like, I'm with my life partner.
I love that, though.
There's a juicy ring on my finger. We're in our dream home, and it's time for us to give birth. But I think I've already gone through the phase of self-sexual exploration, and I feel like I'll always be doing that. Partners.
Yeah.
Been there, done that. And celibacy as well. Periods of celibacy.
You've literally experienced it.
All of it. Yep.
I feel like I want to say right there with you with the last part of what you said, but the birthing part, I'm going to let you have that. It's giving auntie. It's giving auntie first, and then it's giving mother. A lot of the intentions I've had for the past couple of years, which is going to be amplified, hopefully, by speaking it and putting it out there, is embracing self-love through the body love that we discussed, and also through self-pleasure, continuing to explore that, and obviously use that as a practice of meditation, mindfulness, and manifesting, because it's very powerful, as we know. Continuing to remove shame from these conversations around women's sexuality, promoting health of women's sexuality, and having safe places like this to talk about things. Also, I love listening, which this is a goal, which I guess I will continue to listen to music that empowers women, especially in their sexuality and sexual expression, aka Meg the Stallion. And another goal and intention of mine is to continue to, amplify my sisterhood and protection of the women I love and the women around me, which is very important to me as part of my own liberation, obviously. And then lastly, I just have to obviously only allow people around me that respect my boundaries, but not allow others to have access to me that haven't earned my respect or trust. And that's boom, that's one of my favorite intentions and goals. And I think I'm doing pretty good on that one.
Yes, I love that your liberation is also other people's liberation, and vice versa. Liberating others is also a part of you liberating yourself. That's amazing. I love that.
That makes me feel emotional because it's deeply true. I could cry. I feel it. To be honest, a lot of my reclaiming my power is through being able to have this conversation and share this honestly and vulnerably. And so, that's the empowering part.
But we do this all the time. I feel like our viewers wouldn't know that. Maybe they do, but just to be clear, we do talk about the hard, heavy stuff. We do the shadow work. You guys know.
We talk about this stuff damn near daily.
Not perfect by any means.
No. So with that, we have come to the conclusion of another Awaken podcast episode. Do you have anything else you want to share?
I was going to ask you.
Ask me
if you have anything else you wanted to add before we go.
Maybe just that.
I should think of a question for you. A surprise question.
Sure. Okay.
What is a key for you right now in your sexual healing journey? One key.
Ooh.
Something you couldn't have done the alchemy without.
This is good because I know the exact answer. I see it vividly, and I literally have almost chills, and I could cry because it's been such a key. I think it's in moments where I felt like I started to feel more ashamed of my sexual expression. I will imagine reclaiming my power from those moments where I started to be ashamed of myself, or I started to feel disempowered, or my sexuality didn't belong to me. It was for me to give give to my boyfriend, or for me to show off for everyone else to like me, or to kind of gawk. I really take it back, and I'm like, no, this is my power, this is my gift, God gave this to me. And really also taking back, I'm allowed to feel pleasure. Like, I feel like as women, we're taught to kind of, as we get older, take on the world's problems. You kind of get cold and critical and kind of bitter. So I feel like affirming that in my own sexual exploration, I'm allowed to feel pleasure, whether that's by myself or whether that's with someone else. And I feel like in my innocence, as when I was younger, even as a teenager, part of me understood that I'm meant to enjoy myself in this, and that could apply to life as well. When I'm creating, I'm allowed to enjoy myself. When I'm waking up, living my daily routines, I'm allowed to enjoy myself. My life doesn't have to be, self-punishment or suffering. So those two things, I hope that answered your question. And that first one may not help for everybody.
It's your key. I feel like it's your key, your advice.
So don't traumatize yourself by thinking back to memories.
But sometimes that stuff surfaces.
I have had traumatizing memories resurface, and also in those moments I was able to literally go back as my present self. It's called self-love for a reason. I feel like people take that lightly, but it's no, literally. You can literally give yourself affirmations in those moments and really visualize your worthiness and how beautiful and amazing you are, and that is powerful.
My key is knowledge.
I
want to
that.
make sure that I'm, not upsetting the balance, that I'm bettering whatever's to come after me. There'll be factors that are always outside of our control, but for me, as someone who sees themselves as a part of something bigger, even if I'm not directly the mother or the birther, it is important that I am associated or a participant in creating conscious families and consciousness within people, so that way we feel control in some way, because we can control the internal and how we respond, how we react, and what we choose to do instead of just settling for what was given to us.
The keys are intention, visualization,
alchemy, respect,
and knowledge.
I
love that you said knowledge.
And sensibility.
You don't have to be lonely being alone, like my good sis Chloe and Hallie said.
I kept hearing you're not first come first serve. You're not an hors d'oeuvre.
It honestly can't be earned, but I guess respect and trust can be earned.
There has to be time and effort put in. I don't think it's necessarily to earn, but that's just putting in the work.
No,
that's just sustaining it. That's not earning, true. That's sustaining.
And it has to be real. So stay tuned for another episode where we dive into exploring more of your sexuality and being really free. And you'll have to stay tuned for it to really see what that means.
Free the nipple.
Free the nipple. Might as well free the ass, free the to. If this land is truly free, you will let us be free.
Yeah, truly.
Respectfully. And I put a capital R on respectfully.
Free the nudity.
And with that, we have come to the conclusion of another Awaken podcast episode.
We are so happy that you guys are here listening and made it all the way through.
We thank you for your time and being here with us, as we know these topics aren't always easy to talk about, but it is very important and essential that we do.
Make sure you subscribe to our channel, like this video if you're watching on YouTube, and also check us out on Spotify.
If you are listening on Spotify, make sure you go ahead and check us out on YouTube. Be well, take care of yourselves, and stay true. Be sure to check out our recent interview with Voyage LA Mag, and also listen to our cover of Ali and AJ's Potential Breakup song, found in the description below or linked on our social medias.